Hi everybody, Vanita here, and welcome to my September forecast. So as usual, we're going to be working with the Publishing Goblins Oracle dice. I like to start off with a card that will give us a sense of the month ahead. So we'll pick that. And the card we have is the Stitch Queen. So we will learn about that one as we go along. And we have all our die here. Alright, let's see where these are going to fall. Alright, we had one go off the mat. Interestingly enough, nothing landed in the core. So we don't have an overall theme for today, and a couple of other die went off the mat, including the Chaos die, which suggests that there's some very deliberate things going on this month. So the first one that we're going to look for is the Fate die. And wow, okay, this is very interesting because both the Chaos die and the Fate die have gone off the mat. I've never seen that happen before. So that again suggests that there's a very specific plan for this month. These two die don't get to throw any spanners into the works, as it were. So we're just going to start off from the beginning and go on our way through and select our die. So starting off with the Actions die, and that's not the one that went on the floor. Okay, so that one is showing up under Future, and it shows this little guy getting stabbed. It doesn't sound very encouraging, does it? That is called Sacrifice. So in most cases it speaks to giving something up that we don't want to, but it's typically for the better. And the most important thing about it is that it's intentional. In other words, this is not an accidental loss. This isn't something that just happens. It's us going, I need to give this up. And, you know, there's a lot of things we have given up this year in terms of what's going on politically in the country. And this can be very much personally in your life. So going forward, there's going to be something where you're going to say, I need to give that up because it's for the better, it needs to be done. And so this is going to be a very clear decision on your part, on our part, as it were. The Alchemist die is showing up under Inevitable. It looks like this. And it is Prima Materia. So in a reading, it can speak to the ephemeral nature of pure reality. More often it relates to the raw stuff that is given to us. It's merely the core purity of things. So in other words, it's showing up under Inevitable to say your soul chose a path, and the purity of that path is that intention was placed coming into this life. So even if you don't fully understand what the plan is this time around, it's basically saying it's all part of the plan. So just go with it. Our Ally die is showing up near History, but also in the Beyond, as it were. And it is about truth. So it looks like this all-seeing eye. So it's understanding things without the mantles we force them to don, seeing things simply as they are. So it's very interesting to me that both in Inevitable and in History, it's basically framing the situation and saying things are what they are. And if you can accept it and move with it and see it as this is all part of the plan, it becomes a little less scary, a little less frustrating when you're dealing with the unknown, because you're able to go, okay, you know, even if I don't fully understand what this is or where it's taking me, it's part of a plan my soul agreed to before I ever came into this life. There is a purpose to this, even if I don't fully understand it at the moment. So we have the Attentions die, And it is showing up as this whole, and it's showing up under foundation. So it is that dark pit where no light shines, where things are tossed, abandoned, and forgotten. It's the space where nothing is meant to return. So it speaks of the subconscious, whatever we try to do or forget. It speaks to the things we intentionally say, I don't want to remember this. So it's sitting in the foundation. In other words, what it's saying is that there are some things we don't want to remember, but at a subconscious level, they are still an influence. They are still affecting us. It's kind of like, when you keep picking the wrong situation for you, whether it's a relationship, a career, a spiritual choice, place to live. And you can either go, well, I keep having bad luck, or the, universe is working against me, or you can go, well, hold on a sec, I'm the common denominator. What patterns am I running that keep taking me here? What am I not consciously aware of that keeps showing up? That's part of your foundation. The patterns that have been running your whole life that you're not conscious of that are affecting the decisions that you make. Which, by the way, is one of the primary things I deal with in my practice, is helping you uncover those patterns, bring them to consciousness so that you're no longer operating in a way that doesn't work for you. All right, autumn die. The autumn die is showing up under inevitable as well. And it is called passing, and it's the skull. So it's passing is the equivalent of the tarot death card. It speaks to something ending, but knowing that from all endings come beginnings. It's about a cycle. So in other words, it's saying the cycle is inevitable. You may have heard me talk about this in past forecasts, saying, the idea that strong men create good times create weak men, weak men create bad times create good men. You can put women in there too. It's just a concept, right? That what we're going through is cyclical, which means it's inevitably going to change. So we can get really stuck in negative thinking, whether it's in our direct situation or in the broader sense of things, or we can say, it's all part of a cycle. So I'm finding it very interesting in this forecast this month that everything is framing to say, this is all part of a cycle. This is all agreed upon at some soul contract level. So don't get too caught up in the details. Just realize it's part of a bigger plan, and it's something we agreed to. So at soul level, we saw this as ultimately beneficial. Okay? So that should give all of us a bit of respite from worry. All right, so now we're going in, we're skipping the chaos die because it left. And isn't it interesting that the chaos die is not part of this reading, but there's a very strong framework for this reading, one that's very specifically saying, you chose this. So we're looking at the elements die as sitting in the past. And it is fire, so it looks like that. And it says, an often unconsidered element of fire is that it's stubborn. It's hard to grow without obvious and clear aid, and once it begins to grow, it will not move unless forced to. So it is extreme energy, focus, and drive when needed, but often burns itself away before completion. So if we're seeing it as part of the past, we can say there are things in the past that drove me to the current moment. But I don't need to keep focusing on what it was from the past. It's kind of like this. If somebody says, oh, this terrible thing happened to me in the past, and they're dwelling on that, one of the ways you can look at it instead is, okay, how is it affecting you now? And what do you want to do about that? So you can dwell on the past and let it hold you back and blind you to the possibilities of the present and the future. Or you can say, what can I learn from that? What energy and awareness can I apply to the current situation because of what I experienced in the past that can now move me forward? So we're really being very clearly told here, do not dwell too much on the past. Just let it spur you forward. Let it fuel the decisions you make now. Okay. That's the elements. And the fate die has also been thrown off the table, off the mat, so we don't need to look at that. The goblin die is showing up under foundation as well. And it is called manufacturing. So it looks like that. So it's basically saying in this case, it's really important to take steps to make something real. It's interesting to me that it shows up next to the whole, which suggests to me that we can work with our subconscious. We can say, I'm going to not get caught in daydreams, not get caught in fantasy, but I'm going to take what's happened, bring it to consciousness, do the work to come to consciousness, and apply that energy going forward. So that's a really important part of the process. So we come to the Stitch Queen, and that's the card that we had come up that's representing the reading. It explicitly points to someone in power over the situation who demands fealty, loyalty, right? Servitude, who believes they control or should control the current situation. So we do have a situation right now where there are elements in the world trying to control how we live our lives. It's permeating everything. We're all feeling it. It's affecting our economy. It's affecting our emotions. And again, if we look at the foundation of the spread that's saying, this is all soul contract, this is all agreed to a long time ago, we can look on it as, okay, why did I choose to be here for this? What's the experience I'm going to gain out of participating in this situation? Which really changes things when we move away from feeling victimized by it to saying, on some level, I chose to be here. Why? What am I meant to learn? What am I meant to contribute? Why did I choose to be here at this time? You know, people often talk about finding their purpose. It can start with looking at what's going on around me right now that I can grow from and that I can contribute to. That's a great way of finding your purpose, because purpose is not necessarily one big, awakening that, this is it, this is my purpose. It can be a day-to-day, here's where I can show up. Here's where I can make a difference. Here's where I can wake up and keep learning. This is something we really want to do, right? Okay, so the influencer's die shows up in the present, and it is sun and flowers. So there you go. And it's a purely supportive, positive relationship. It can be a mentor, a parent, a friend. It can also be you supporting and uplifting others. So it's saying in the present, this is a great month to allow yourself to be supported and look for ways to support others. I always find it very interesting when I get something and then the next dice or card says what I just said. So as I'm saying, like, look for where your purpose is, look for how you can contribute and how you can learn and build community and participate in all of this. The Major's die shows up under history, and it's an interesting one to show up there because it's about the path. So it's basically understanding the path is not only asking of us to understand our decisions in this moment are important, but also setting up the path to understand what's at stake and what options there are to take. So it's showing up under history. Again, it's so weird to me, but so many of the die that are surrounding the edge of the mat are saying, this is inevitable, this is the path, this is what you chose. Really making it clear that we take responsibility for our choice this month, or choices, and not drop into victimhood. So the Mariner's die is also showing up under inevitable, and it shows the ocean. And it says it is unpredictable, but amoral change. So again, it's getting back to stop seeing yourself as a victim of change. Everything that's happening right now is part of the journey, part of the path. I don't think I have ever seen a spread like this, where the die literally created a frame of intention, really drilling it home. We chose this. We chose this experience. We chose everything going on in our lives. And that's true throughout our lives. We can either say, why me? Or we can say, what am I here to learn? How am I meant to grow? And how do I move forward with this? How do I make a contribution? This is a time of awakening, and awakening is never easy. There are always challenges, but how strengthening it is to say, I chose this. I chose this experience. I chose to be here for this. Far better than bemoaning our fate. So along with the Sun and Flowers, which is about being of support, we also have the caterpillar under the Metamorphosis die. And so it's talking about that it needs food, it needs something to sustain it. What dice ends up near it? So it's interesting that in the present it says what sustains you is allowing others to support you and being of support yourself. Nothing gets us through anything like community. So whether you go to church or you belong to social groups, don't let yourself be isolated. In fact, the Hopi calendar, they said there were two paths for humanity. One that was about fear, greed, and competition, and the other one that was about community. So to get on the path that allows humanity to continue, you have to participate in community. You have to support people around you and allow them to support you. We get through all of this together. And those are the only two die showing up in the present. That to me is highly significant. Everything now is about moving together on the things that matter to us. We are so much more powerful and capable as a group than we are working individually and in competition with each other. Now in the future, and right on the edge of fated, we have peace. So it says sometimes we get just what we want. We stem the tide of opposition, we stop the conflict, and we get peace. Sometimes it's a strange obstacle because you might be ready to fight when the work now is different, when it's building up and sustaining, not just battling. We sometimes lose our way. This is the phase to recognize this and begin to shift who you've told yourself to be. It's no longer time to tear down or battle, it's time to build. So we see this in the future. As we move forward, as we make a sacrifice, it is about building. And sometimes it means we have to look beyond I want to what's best for us as a society. You know, what do we need to do? And we've long been out of the experience of family members going to war and having to, you know, have somebody leave the family and have to do without and ration things in order for there to be enough resources at the front. So that level of sacrifice isn't something we've known, and we might not need to know at this time, but just the idea of what am I willing to sacrifice? Where am I willing to step out of my creature comfort zone in order to participate in this community moving toward building something better? Am I willing to step out of my isolation? Am I willing to be vulnerable and interact with other people in a deeper way to create something better? Okay, the Relations die is showing up under Foundation as well, and it is alone. So it doesn't necessarily mean lonely. It's alone typically means an imposed isolation, kept alone by others who refuse to notice or speak with you in any depth, or alone by the virtue of not being around others at all. In most cases, this refers to being alone in a social or mental sense. So the Foundation is, in a lot of ways, we have created a society that isolates itself. You know, we're on our phones, we're on our iPads, we're on our computers, and we're interacting less and less as a society. There's an interesting book on this subject. There's a movie done about it, Bowling Alone. The idea that there's all kinds of people out there now going to bowling lanes, but they're not in leagues, they're just bowling by themselves. And this person did a study on the impact of being part of social groups. People tend to live longer. People tend to be happier because they have connection, because they have community. So when you see this as your foundation, and remember it's paired with the manufacturing one and this, you know, subconscious, your foundation may very well have been to isolate yourself. Recognize going forward, you got to move out of that You got to be part of community. That's how we move forward. We cannot survive as a society on our own. We need each other. That's a very important message coming through in this spread. The spring die is showing up under history, and it is, interesting enough, it's sex. So when it shows up in history, it's the way I'm reading it in this case. It's the idea, the nascent concept of being born. Again, it's speaking to the path, being born onto this path, choosing to be on this path through the body you came into this world in, however it orients itself going forward, however it's meant to show up in the world. You chose to be in this form at this time, walking this path. Again, everything all around the edges is just framing that. Never seen a spread like this. It's really intriguing. So the suits die shows up in the future. It is the crown, and it's showing up next to sacrifice. So that's very interesting. It raises the importance of this die greatly. So in other words, the sacrifice we have to make going forward is no small potatoes. It's a big deal. So it's really important to be part of community, because communities share resources, emotionally, physically, materially, you name it. You will need that community for the sacrifice that's coming. And sacrifice might be something as simple as sacrificing your isolation, being willing to be part of something greater than yourself, and maybe not having full control, because a lot of times in isolation we have the illusion of control, and we won't have that going forward if we're part of community. Instead, we get the security of being part of a community, but sometimes it means we have to give up our individual wants and desires. Radiance comes with the past as well, but getting awfully close to the foundation. So in other words, it's taking what we learned from the past, that fire, and allowing it to be part of our radiance. I have learned from the past. I have incorporated that. It is part of my radiance that may draw people and situations to me so I can keep learning, so I can keep growing, and then moving into awakening that foundation so I don't stay isolated, but I move into the present, which is about being part of community, carrying that radiance forward so that it's a contribution to what's going on around you. Now the winter die is showing up under momentum, and it is sorrow. So in the future here, and these are all working together, the sorrow, that sense of loss, which might involve the sacrifice we've needed to make, is the energy we need to propel us forward. For example, changes are being made in administrative levels in the States right now that affect climate, that affect community, people being ripped away and put in other countries they don't belong in. The amount of sorrow that is creating is also motivating people to action. And that's the thing to realize. When everything's going well, we tend to get complacent, we let the little things bother us, and we can kind of get stuck in that pettiness. When big things are happening that are really hard, it can be our motivation. Remember, what came after that is eventually peace. So we need that difficult situation that's coming up to motivate us to act toward peace. And that's why it's so important to have community building now. So you're not stuck in fear, stuck in sorrow on your own, just dwelling in that. You're taking that energy, you're finding solace in group activity and doing something that is meaningful to move us towards that building rather than combating. And the wounds die shows up under fated, and it's an interesting die. It says unmarred. All of this work in community is leading us to peace and back to innocence. Ultimately, the cycle completes and we come back to a place of innocence where maybe it's the next generation that is unmarred by the activity that we're experiencing now, because we took action, because we built toward peace, they get a better future. I am really loving this spread this month. It's so much of what I'm seeing here is about recognizing you chose this path, embracing it fully, and really focusing on what we're supposed to be building right now. Don't let the past hold you back. What did you learn from it? How can you grow from it? And what does it allow you to contribute now in the present in building community? Because you're going to need that. It's going to be a lot harder for us in the future for whatever sacrifices that need to be made here, whatever sorrow has to be encountered if we're isolated. And imagine building community so that when we move through that, we feel stronger, we're doing it together, and we come out to a point where we're building the peace that once again allows people to move into innocence. That's pretty spectacular month, I think. Very exciting and really driving home, we all chose this. This is part of our soul contract. So let's live up to what our souls chose. Thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Bye for now.